Hello and welcome. This is Bloomberg Quint. I am in conversation with the management of Hexaware, the CEO of the company, Mr. R Srikrishna, to take us through the latest acquisition that they have made, Mobiquity, an acquisition in which they are buying 100% stake, and this will be for $182 million. Mr. Srikrishna, good morning, and thank you for taking the time out and speaking to us. If you could just start by telling us a little more about what Mobiquity does and, well, what it will bring for Hexaware.
Sure. So Hexaware has a three-pronged strategy: automate everything, cloudify everything, and transform customer experiences. Mobiquity will bring direct and substantial value in two of these three strategies: transform customer experiences using the power of cloud. Right? Let me give you, some examples, right, of how they do it. They bring together really nice strategy, design, and engineering capabilities. Not many companies are actually able to do that well together. And they build products, digital products this way, but best off, they do it like virtually 100% of the development is native on cloud. In fact, it is native on AWS. So that's why it brings substantial value in two of our three strategies.
All right. So, Mr. Srikrishna, can you also tell us about how you guys have come up to the valuation about $182 million? I'm looking at the revenues for the financial year ending 2018. That's at around 70 million. If you could also tell us about the operational performance of the company and whether or not it will actually add or dilute margins for Hexaware in the near term.
Sure. So, in terms of valuation, we think it's a fair price. It's a complex process by which it is arrived. But, if you look at one metric, revenue multiple, it's just north of 2.5 times. And that's pretty comparable with lots of companies with similar capabilities and high growth, such as what Mobiquity has demonstrated. In terms of operational performance margin specifically, we expect this year, to be EBITDA neutral for the transaction outside the one-time cost of the transaction. So they are roughly in the same zone as us from an EBITDA perspective. So it's not dilutive in any way.
All right. So, considering you're paying a large sum upfront and perhaps a little less later on in the staggered manner, my question then is that does that mean that there may not be as many acquisitions from here on for Hexaware Technologies, considering you will have put some amount of cash for allocation and return to shareholders through dividends, and perhaps some which will be required to be used as capital expenditure?
Yes, and also the fact that we want to do this one well. It's virtually our first one, right? We want to do it well, make sure there is lessons learned about how to integrate them well. So there won't be we've said that we will spend about $250 to $300 million on acquisitions. This is actually a substantial portion of it. We will do more, but not immediately.
All right, and in terms of clients which the acquisition may bring, if you could tell us a little more about the kind of synergies that can also play out for Hexaware.
Yeah, so first off, there are some really awesome clients, right? So there are some great brands that Mobiquity services. AWS, Amazon AWS, right? So AWS is a partner, but is also a client. For example, Mobiquity builds AWS's flagship annual conference is called re:Invent. The mobile app for re:Invent is built by Mobiquity. The new skill on Alexa, if you want to get news from Alexa, that new skill is built by Mobiquity. So AWS is a partner. It's a platform on which they build software and is a client, right? Rabobank in Europe, Philips in Europe, Otsuka. Otsuka is a great example because the world's first digital medicine approved by FDA. So Otsuka is a product where there is a chip that is ingestible along with the medicine, which allows doctors and clinicians to track the effectiveness of the medicine as a patient consumes it. And all of this is kind of brought into a mobile app through a platform that Mobiquity is built. So they have some really marquee clients and some really good work that they've done for these marquee clients. The good news for us is that there's virtually, in their top 20, there's virtually no overlap. There's actually one client where there's a little bit of overlap, otherwise there's no overlaps whatsoever in their client base.
All right, so the final question then, Mr. Srikrishna, once the transaction is completed, once the acquisition has been consummated, when can we actually start, or rather expect the financial portion to show up on the income statement for Hexaware?
So the transaction is already completed. So we did virtually simultaneous sign and close, all within 24 hours. So the transaction is already consummated. So in a sense, you will see on a go-forward basis results getting consolidated.
Okay, so we can expect that in this particular quarter's earnings as well, or will we have to wait for the next quarter?
No, you will see a few days of this quarter coming in.
Okay.
And of course from next quarter fully.
All right, Mr. Srikrishna, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us and taking us through your latest acquisition. Wish you the best for the future.
Thank you.